1985, our beloved minivan, Nellie, broke down on the M4. We will never forget you and all who rode you, as it were. Jezebel's here, our new blue minibus. Woo! A gift from Manchester Greenham Support Group. Thank you, ladies, has arrived. But unfortunately, we only have one driver, obviously. And on Thursday, 14th February, Jezebel was towed off by the bailiffs. The council refused to see us and kept her overnight, deliberately depriving women of bedding and shelter for a night. Boo! While in police custody, women leafleted outside council offices to let passers-by know about this behaviour. We will not give in to this kind of intimidation. Oh, Lassie is a mummy. On Tuesday, January 22nd, 7 till 10 a.m, Lassie had 4 daughters and 3 sons. Both mum and pups are doing fine and are due to return to Bluegate from Exeter in about 8 weeks' time. 8 dogs at Bluegate, perish the fool. They are all black with white markings and white-tipped tails. Oh, night watches are still very much needed, thanks to all the women who do come. Hello to the St Ives girls, and thanks for the peace cake. Please do come and stay. It's a hard gate to live at, and any women who do
come are always welcome. Love and kisses, Bluegate.
She is like a mountain. She is like a mountain. And strong. She goes on and on and on. She can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain. She old and strong. She goes on and on and on. She can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain. Old and strong. She goes on and on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain. Old and strong. She goes on. I brought tears for joining. Did you come on your own? I brought you. Please sit down. You must be tired. I brought biscuits. Have you come far? It was at that party. Do you have a tent? A cup of tea? It was years ago. Weren't you pregnant? Yes, with Charlie. Haven't been to a party since. This is a picture that my children made for the fair that's so lovely. For the fair, for the fair.
find our strength. It has become abundantly clear that Greenham is so successful because it is a women's peace camp.
I had to do something for my children. Children are much more susceptible to radiation than adults. I realized that I would have to watch my children die and then die myself. We have to do something for our children.
You can't fight violence with violence. It just creates continuing spirals of violence. It's about power. It's about patriarchy. It's the nature of capitalism. We need to realise that we cannot all be wrong.
And we who live with conscience despite discomfort, who raise our voices despite the silencings, who gather strength despite the pain. Mr. Gorbachev, surprise us with a vodka, and Fidel Castro, make sure we get to do la 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 down and freedom on the street, violence like the KGB, it's slaughters in the mud, la 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 la, grizzly vegetarian.
time is running out. People have to realise and face the drastic situation. British people and people all over the world have been protesting legally for 40 years, and it hasn't worked. Britain's economy is falling to pieces because of nuclear weapons. We still have more per square mile than any other European country. Cruise missiles are the limit, the last straw. They are illegal. They contravene international law.
Very happy memory to relive watching that again, and what a lot more there is to get out of it. Welcome, if you didn't see me at the beginning. My name's Bill. I am artistic director of Tete-a-Tete, white man, early 60s, glasses, baseball cap, terrible lighting, and a Tete-a-Tete Yacht Festival background, and my pronouns are he, him. I am here to chair a short discussion with the 4 co-creators and auteur of the piece. Would you like to appear, you 5 anyway? And maybe we start with Josh, who was the person who first talked to me and had the impulse, and slightly you haven't foregrounded, I don't think, the family reason for doing this. Perhaps you'd like to share it, because you do mention on your webpage. I think that's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, it's an interesting. It's very different to things I've done in the past, because it is entirely kind of co-created by all of us. So I kind of come at this from being a composer, but I'm by no means the composer of this work in the sense that it's all mine. But the reason, I think one of the first reasons I wanted to do this piece is that my grandmother, who I referred to as my babcia, because she was, well, she wasn't Polish, her husband was Polish, but there's a sort of Polish connection. She was an activist at Greenham, so I was sort of always aware of it when I was a child, to the point, like, she used to do cruise watch, so she used to follow cruise missiles around, like, and like scan, like have a shortwave radio where she scanned police radios. So I always used to think that it was very normal to have like a massive shortwave radio mast coming out of your Fiat Polo. But I think I was always aware of it. And then sadly, when she died, which actually nearly 11 years ago, so it was 2013, she had a big memorial, kind of celebration, and all these women came from the peace movement. And I think I was just aware that there's this whole life that she had that I was kind of partially aware of, and in the way that you're sort of aware of maybe relations, but it's sort of a whole story. And I became more interested in Greenham actually did a piece a little while ago based on You Can't Kill the Spirit. And then, a couple of years ago, I sort of started working on this piece with Trinity and doing a little bit of kind of exploratory stuff. And then, finally kind of came to you and said, I got this sort of idea that I want to sort of explore Greenham. And so part of the process has been talking to some of my Baptist friends. So actually at least one person here, Judith, who I did talk to. I hope she doesn't mind me saying. But also it was very important for me to work with women and minority genders, because it couldn't just be my impression of this. So it's been this kind of interesting, it's been my exploration of what Greenham is to me and my family history. But then I think the other thing that has really made this piece is what Greenham is to everyone who's worked on it. And I think that's been where it's become this kind of quite interesting sort of work. It's kind of
I think those of us who are, functioning at the time all feel a certain degree of ownership. That I certainly had plenty of friends who were at Greenham, and I myself was endlessly demonstrating in rather similar situations, maybe not staying for ages, but for campaigning for the environment and for gay rights. And you capture something. It was a sort of lovely, sweet, innocent time in a way, whereas somehow it feels much harsher. I think the genius of what you're doing as well is it was a performative act anyway. So the Greenham women were performers. They weren't just like not wanting to be seen. It was all about being seen and heard. And so something brilliant about that. But then in your piece, the five of you have taken that and then moved it to a new level, because suddenly these voices appear that just can't have been like the voices in Greenham, making this absolutely incredible, beautiful sounds. I don't know how to ask for co-creators any lucid questions. Perhaps you can ask yourself your own questions. And I must remind the audience that you too can ask questions by typing them into the chat. But just taking it in the order of my screen, Hestor, how was it for you?
It was definitely like an interesting process. I guess quite different from stuff I'd done before as well. And I never really particularly tried to put protest into like a performance context. So yeah, quite interesting to reflect on what you say about protest itself being a performance. I think like for me, like I had a background of activism and a background of protest and occupational protest as well. So I felt definitely a connection to it. Also, like my mum was at Greenham for periods of time as well. So
really?
Well, like familial. And yeah, I'd always sort of like heard about it and stuff, heard stories about it. And yeah, felt like something that I understood because I'd done similar things. But yeah, I think for me, like, I felt like there was a real challenge in getting that across in a musical piece. We obviously had the Greenham Songbook as like a major resource in like making it. And it's a big part of the piece. Is
that's quite cool. So when you get a start, you can just do another of them. Emily, how was it for you? Do you remember Greenham, or is it history for you, or is there family folklore, or what did it mean, and what does it mean there?
I actually grew up not far from Greenham. I grew up in Berkshire.
Oh, really?
So I always had an awareness around Greenham and what it meant and what it was. But I actually came to this project slightly later than the others. I was called in a little bit later. And it was really amazing because I've never worked on a project where the creating of it is truly non-hierarchical. Like we were all equal collaborators, and that felt really radical in a way that I wish it wasn't radical to have that in a working environment making opera, but it was, and it was just the most fun. Like we just approached it.
Oh, we're losing you.
As a game and as playfully as to the time and catch up. It was.
Yeah, I really wish our music director was here. Tim, he's been doing a long developing your creative practice on co-creation. And this July in Newcastle, we performed a piece. I arrived very much at the end, co-created with three primary school classes in Newcastle, accompanied by the Royal Northern Sinfonia. So we're really into co-creation, tete-a-tete, and finding it, yeah, really, really exciting way to work. Julia, was it exciting for you? And also, do you have like Greenham memories or connections, or is it history?
So I didn't know about it until I had never heard of it. I had no knowledge of what it was at all.
Wow.
So the whole thing was purely my decision to be involved in it was just purely because I really liked the people that were doing the project. So when Josh said, I've got this idea, we're going to create something. And it could have honestly, he could have said anything and I'd have said yes, because it was so nice to work with him and all the others. And I hope that that comes across when you watch it as well. It was really important to us, like Emily said, to capture the sort of the play and the joy of it and the relationships of these people who were there. Because to then turn up years later at someone's funeral who maybe you haven't seen for ages, those relationships were clearly very, very special and very bonding. And to have created the piece with such a special group of people, I really hope that comes across, and I hope that that is true to the feeling of it there, because it felt fantastic to do. It's as Emily said, it shouldn't be radical to be in such a positive and supportive working environment. Sadly, it's not always a guarantee. And it was just so lovely to be around all of these people. And I hope that the work that we have already produced and will continue to produce will have that running through it wherever the project goes next. I think that that heart of it is sort of that foundation that we want to continue as we develop it onwards.
Yeah, I think it's the genius of the idea, really. Amy, your character was, as Emily describes her, arriving late into the thing. But how was it for you? I bet you were
Yeah,
happy.
it was definitely an interesting process, and I definitely want to echo what Juliet said about working with such amazing people, because it really does make a huge difference. Yeah, I think for me, I was the same as Juliet in that I didn't know about Greenham until meeting Josh a couple of years ago, and we started like talking about it. And when it was in the very baby stages, when we first sort of like did it the first time with Josh at Trinity a while ago, um, it was really interesting because we actually started, as Hestor was saying before, about like having conversations of what protest meant to us as individuals and our own experiences of protest. And for me, they're very few and far between, very, very different to my peers in terms of like what they do as protesters and stuff. And so I learned a lot about the project, but also a little bit more about myself and like how I approach political situations like that, especially given the times that we're in at the minute, everything that people are fighting for now, and how we do that. I think there's what really hit me, I think, doing it this time around and making it a bigger project for Tete-a-Tete, was just how much of it still feels relevant to now, or rather, so much has changed, I think, in terms of what we might be allowed to do as protesters now. But in a way, like there's just so much of it that still really hits home.
Well, so much has changed in terms of what we're allowed to do, but on the other hand, politically, I mean, Greenham was about Americans putting nuclear missiles in the UK, and that was it. And I mean, there was the Cold War looming over us, but the likelihood of them being discharged was slim. Whereas now we're in a situation where we've got a massive nuclear power picking on another form of nuclear power in Ukraine, which itself was the source of one of the biggest nuclear disasters we've ever had, Chernobyl, while at the same time we've got Israel, which is another nuclear power, really about to completely kick off with Iran, which is probably a nuclear power, and nobody's quite sure. So there's something about you four guys coming in to that space and addressing this, that especially that recording at the end, about how much of a nuclear power Britain still is, because it puts us into that game, which is really immense. It is. I think you should get on with it and put this on everywhere, and do it, yeah, wherever you can. I mean, George, you'll remember the minute you came to me, I went, "Oh, it's a girl," because one of my all-time favorite shows was this a cappella musical for 5 women who were Greenham women called It's a Girl, and there was like the plot was about Greenham, but it was also about one of them was having a baby, and she gave birth, and that was the climax of the whole thing. It's something I always wanted to direct. And I went back to it not very many years ago and thought, can this still be done? And lots of pieces, you get fantastic period piece, but that particular one, you could never get back. It's really interesting how it just wouldn't work anymore because that horrible phrase, it's dated. So and none of you knew this, I don't think. You've just started afresh and made something that really is for now and works really powerfully, and needs to get done more as quickly as possible. Josh, maybe you could have the last word about what you're going to do about that. Where's it going to happen? When can we see it?
Yeah, so I think so the hope is to kind of extend this further into a kind of, to a fuller piece. And the dream actually really is to do, I would quite like it to be an outdoors piece, a site-specific piece, because I think being outdoors is so kind of key to the experience of this. And then also potentially using some of the sites that the march, which went from Cardiff to Greenham, kind of followed along, as a kind of potential, as a kind of touring kind of route. That would be the ideal, I think. Yeah, I think that's where we're heading. But
I think you need
give
to,
it a while.
you're going to have to do 2 versions. You're like, I know, in the previous watch party, you need to do that, and you should do it and all that. But I think you need to do one that can be performed to a lot of people in a lot of places and be shared widely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it. I mean, maybe thinking about filming as well or something. That would be interesting to see how it could evolve.
It would, but Greenham itself was a live thing. It wasn't a film. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's
kind
true.
of lose the performative thing if you do that.
But yeah,
But
no,
I shouldn't be trying to control what you do.
No, Bill.
A farewell question from Elizabeth, because we're over time already, is apart from Josh, do you all come to the project from a background principally as performers? That's a tongue twister, Elizabeth, thank you. Or are you also composers in the standard sense? Your creative powers are awesome. That's definitely true. Who would like to take that? Or you should each take that. Should we go in the same order?
Yes, probably for the most part. But yeah, I've also done a fair amount of devising and stuff, but I definitely wouldn't call myself a composer. More a performer.
Contributing performer, I see. Yeah, Emily.
I'm not a composer, but I alongside a performing career, I direct. So actually, my involvement with tete-a-tete in the past has only been through directing, and that's what I do outside of. That's my other discipline. So I do both basically, but I don't compose.
Brilliant. Have lots of strings to your bow. Juliet.
Yeah, I'm a performer. I have written music before, but I would never say that I was a composer. But I love working with composers and I love creating new music alongside composers. It's so fun to have that relationship with someone and get a new friend out of it who you can go to the pub with as well. So it's always really, really nice to create new music, but I would never label myself as a composer.
And finally, Amy.
Yeah, very, very similar to Juliet. I would never call myself a composer, but I guess I have had to write music in the past. But I think something for me is I also really enjoy improvisation, and a lot of it was born out of improvisation in the beginning, which I just think is always great fun and is always pretty magical, I think, with unaccompanied voices. Yeah, so but I
Well,
wouldn't call myself a composer.
yeah, I think we all have to thank you for ending our festival and our year even on a lovely upbeat with a little jewel of a show and a very exciting, promising future. Thank you so much. I'll give you a clap on behalf of our hidden audience, and we can't wait to see more. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thanks for having us, Bill.